Hello, welcome to another episode of Candid Catholic Convos, and happy Easter. If your kids are anything like mine, this past week has been especially challenging. It's like they automatically become more feral when they know they're about to have a few days off from school. And today, they were definitely more excited to rip open their chocolate than they were to get dressed for church. I swear, taking a set of sugared up siblings into the pews should absolutely put us on the path to sainthood. But even in years prior, Holy Week always just felt like something to get through, especially if whatever you gave up for Lent felt extra hard. Now, I know today officially marks the end of Holy Week, but for next year and for every year after that, how can we really lean into this special season, this pinnacle of our faith, and truly experience it rather than just trudge through it? Deacon Scott Root, senior theology teacher at Trinity High School, joins me again today for our Back to Basics series. And today we're exploring the holiest week of the year that we just celebrated, most specifically the 3 days leading up to today, and why they are so vital to our faith. Deacon Root, welcome back to Candid Catholic Convos. I'm really excited to continue with our Back to Basics, and this time we're going to be talking all about the Easter Triduum because today's Easter. So happy Easter.
Happy Easter. It's great to be back and be with you today. And let's dive in here with the Easter Triduum. Yeah.
Let's do it. So talk to me a little bit about what is the Easter Triduum and why is it considered the most important celebration in the Catholic Church?
Well, the Easter Triduum is Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and the Easter Vigil on Holy Saturday. And it's one continuous celebration of Jesus's passion, death, and resurrection. So in the 3 days, we enter into the various aspects of his passion. So we start on Holy Thursday. We started on Holy Thursday with the Last Supper and the washing of the feet. We moved with Jesus to the agony in the garden, which is significant in the fact that a lot of parishes have adoration after. And then Good Friday at 3:00, we commemorate his passion and death on the cross by reading through the passion itself and venerating the cross. And then after that celebration or commemoration, we move to the joyous celebration of Easter, and we bring back the Alleluia. We bring back light. The beginning of the Easter Vigil starts with a service of light. And then we move into a liturgy of the Word where we look at salvation history from the Old Testament with several Old Testament readings before we move into the New Testament. As I said, we bring back the Alleluia. We talk about the resurrection of Jesus and enter into the joyful 50 days of the Easter season. So it's the high point of the liturgical year because Jesus is risen, and we get to walk that journey with him, not only to Good Friday, but to his resurrection.
You mentioned something in there where you said the word venerate. Talk to me about what does that word actually mean when we say venerate the cross? What are we talking about when we say that?
So as part of the Good Friday service, we venerate the cross, meaning that traditionally people kiss or touch the cross as a sign of not worship of the cross itself because it's an object, but realizing that the cross is the altar on which Jesus ultimately sacrificed himself for our salvation. And so we hold close to that cross and venerate it, realizing that it is a symbol of what Jesus had done for us in his passion and death.
That makes sense because we want to really, that's our focus. I think that's important to know. Now, the Easter Triduum is something that we've done for forever, it seems. But I feel like everything, it's probably evolved over time. So over the course of, the history of the church, how has the Triduum and the way we observe it evolved? What's its historical background when it comes to our faith?
Around the 4th century, when the church started to become acceptable in the Roman Empire and stuff, we start to see the 3 distinct days really come out as being part of the way we celebrated. Before that, it was one big celebration at the Easter Vigil on Holy Saturday. But we see a development of the 3 days coming out of the 4th and 5th century, shortly after the time the church was allowed to exist in the Roman Empire without persecution. And so we see that happening, and then the 3 days develop so that we have the story of the Last Supper, the last meal with his apostles, which we see the institution of the Eucharist as the non-bloody sacrifice of what he does on Good Friday. We also see the institution of the priesthood in that moment. And then Good Friday being the celebration or the commemoration, really, of Jesus' death on the cross, and then the joyful...
Yeah, because there's no Mass that day, right?
There's no Mass on Good Friday, yeah, because we're commemorating his death in that moment, and Jesus no longer physically being present in the same way on earth as he was before that moment. So it's kind of we still receive communion as part of the ceremony, but the communion that we received was consecrated at the Holy Thursday Mass. But it kind of leaves us feeling a little lonely, a little, I don't want to say the word depressed, but solemn, because we realize that Jesus isn't physically present. So we kind of enter into some of the pain and confusion maybe that the apostles had in that moment, and their misunderstanding or their understanding but unable to maybe have their feelings expressed in that moment until we re-see the joy again on Holy Saturday night, beginning with the ceremony of light.
I kind of feel like the apostles were probably, I almost said the deprostles, but the apostles were probably feeling like okay, what now? Like, the guy that we were looking to for all the answers isn't here. So I can see how that would feel very isolating. Right.
Well, and the scripture points out that they didn't have a full understanding of Jesus's ministry and mission and how this was all going to play out. He tried to give them some hints and some clues, and even St. Peter recognized that he was Messiah, but what that really meant was still confusing to them until Pentecost, where the Holy Spirit really opened their hearts and their minds and their eyes and their mouths, because then they went out to proclaim. And we celebrate today because of their witness following Pentecost.
That always just amazes me. It just the tongues of fire on Pentecost, like it's like that. Hey, here you go. Like, let's go. Let's do this. It's right. that real kick in the pants. Now, I know for some people, there's a lot of misconceptions about Easter and the Triduum that are kind of unique to our faith. Like one of the memes I see all the time is like, oh, zombie Jesus, right? And we know that that's not the case. But what would you say are some of the more common misconceptions? And for those who are maybe unfamiliar with our traditions in the church, what are some of the most important things to understand about the role that the Triduum plays leading up to the celebration of Easter?
Well, the Triduum really is the central part of our faith, because it's that central act of Jesus' dying on the cross and then his resurrection, which is the central belief of the faith itself. Sometimes Catholics think that the three ceremonies are kind of isolated, and Holy Thursday is not a day of obligation, Good Friday is not a day of obligation, but to fully appreciate the great mystery that we're celebrating on Holy Saturday or Easter Sunday morning, if that's when we come to Mass, it's good to celebrate the other 2 days, to celebrate the Triduum in its entirety, because then it really helps us to dive deeper into our faith and to really understand those 3 days and their significance. And we see the different stories of Jesus with the washing of the feet and the institution of the Eucharist. And we see in the Passion, the reading of the Passion, we see what he went through, his trial before the Sanhedrin, the trial before Pilate, the scourging. I mean, we get all those details leading up to his last words on the cross and his eventual death. And then that sets us up even more deeply for the Easter joy that we're going to experience. And the church actually helps with that, because the way that the Holy Thursday Mass ends, it doesn't end with a dismissal like we normally have and a blessing. So it seems almost a little incomplete, but that incompleteness is a sign that there's more to be commemorated and celebrated. And then the Good Friday ceremony starts with the priest and the deacon or the bishop falling prostrate and praying in silence, and then we begin with an opening prayer. So there's no sign of the cross at the beginning of the beginning, because it's not Mass, and it kind of helps to establish that connection with Holy Thursday. And then when that ceremony ends, it doesn't end necessarily with a dismissal either. And then the Easter Vigil begins traditionally without a sign of the cross, and then so the connection is greatly enhanced. And then after the service of light at the Easter Vigil, we have the reading of the Old Testament. So we look at salvation history, everything that led to Jesus's passion and death, and the history of the God's chosen people, the Israelites, and how he made himself known to them and is making himself known to us before we get to the gospel and the actual celebration of the word of Jesus being proclaimed as risen. He is not here. And then we celebrate the Eucharist for the first time in 2-3 days as a sign of his resurrection, his power over death, and the fact that he's still with us in the Eucharist and is the source of some of our life as Christians.
I think that's so important. It's kind of like, I hate to reduce it down to this. It's like leaving you on a cliffhanger so that you want more. You want to keep coming back to finish the story.
Right.
So I think that's a very tangible physical reminder for us as we're attending these services.
And as we go deeper and deeper into those services and our own personal spiritual life grows, there can be a great emotional response to being in each of those moments and, kind of being there, almost witnessing the Last Supper, and then witnessing the agony in the garden, and then witnessing, if we place ourselves in prayer and we really try to place ourselves, place ourselves in those moments along the path. The Mass is not crucifying Jesus over again, but it's transcends time in a way and puts us in that moment. And if we can reflect on that and be in those moments, it really helps to deepen our faith and to understand what Jesus really did for us in those moments, and to really experience great joy at Easter. It's all about the Easter joy.
All about it. I love joy, and that's such a powerful reminder, especially for those who practice Lectio Divina. I feel like that would be an incredible scripture passage to meditate on.
Right.
For that.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So let's talk about the days specifically of the Triduum. We have Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Holy Saturday, the Easter Vigil. We talked a little bit about some of the symbolism behind the days themselves, but talk to me about the rituals and practices of these days, like the washing of the feet on Holy Thursday, or we mentioned about the veneration of the cross on Good Friday. Why do we refer to the Holy Thursday Mass as the Mass of the Lord's Supper? And talk to me about the meaning behind the foot washing, because usually whoever's celebrating Mass washes the feet of lay people in the parish.
Right. So on Holy Thursday, we have the institution of the Eucharist and the institution of the priesthood. Jesus says, whatever, do this in remembrance of me. So that's a sign of the institution of the priesthood. What happens in the institution of the Eucharist is Jesus provides us with a non-bloody way to participate in what he's going to do on Good Friday, on his passion and death. So the significance is that that's his Last Supper with his apostles before he endures his passion, and at that moment he gives us the Eucharist as a perpetual way of being present to us, and so we are called to commemorate that in that moment, and then the Eucharist is reserved in so that we have the ability to receive the Eucharist on Good Friday as well, even though we don't have Mass, as we've talked about. The other part of it, you asked about the washing of the feet. The washing of the feet are really significant in that it shows that to be a follower of Jesus is to be humble. In Jesus's day, They wore a lot of sandals or bare feet. They didn't have cool Nikes like we do, or hookahs, or whatever you want to call them. And so when someone came to your house, you provided them with the ability to wash their feet, because you don't know what was on the road, and you wanted to keep the floor of your house as clean as possible. If servants were involved, it was usually the servant who had the lowest standing that had to wash people's feet. And so Jesus is showing us that true humility of washing the feet, that we are called to serve one another. It was a great image that was given to us in our diaconate formation, because we as deacons are configured to Jesus the servant, Christ the servant. And so the image that we reflected on quite frequently was the image of the washing of the feet and what that meant. And in that moment, you have St. Peter saying, well, if I need to enter, then wash. If you have to wash my feet, wash all of me. And Jesus says, for right now, this is sufficient. But there's this great sign that, in his priesthood, and assisted by the deacon in that moment, the priest who is washing the feet of the people may be their father. And we've talked about that in past episodes. But he's also their servant to try to bring them to heaven. So it's this great representation of his priesthood as Christ the servant, but then also the priest who will offer sacrifice, which is what also happened on Holy Thursday.
I love that image. There's this artist that I follow that she paints Jesus washing the feet of people who we normally wouldn't, people who we might think aren't worthy of having their feet washed by Jesus, but Jesus is there to serve all of us. And I think that her artwork is such a powerful reminder. And then being able to see that at Holy Thursday Mass, or like, look, there's people who are just like you, who are special in God's eyes, but to us might just be like Joe Schmo from down the street, who are worthy of being served, of being, of being important in God's eyes. And I think that that's such a powerful reminder.
It's a reminder to us as clergy, but it's also a reminder to the laity about love one another.
Yeah, I love that. We talked a little bit about Good Friday and how we don't have a Mass, but that we participate in the Liturgy of the Passion. How, if it's not structured like a Mass, how does that work? Like, what does a service on Good Friday look like?
Well, there's still some elements of the Mass, even though we don't have the full Mass. There's the Liturgy of the Word. We begin with, as I said previously, in silence, and the priest and the deacon will prostrate themselves in prayer. And then we have the opening prayer, like the collect, like just at Mass. And then we move into the Liturgy of the Word, Old Testament reading, responsorial psalm, second reading. And then we move into the Passion, and we read the Passion similarly to the way we do on Palm Sunday. On Palm Sunday, we use the Passion narrative from whichever gospel year we're in the liturgical year. For Good Friday, it's always from John's Gospel. And then after the homily, that's when things change a little bit. So we have the veneration of the cross, which we've talked about, where we venerate the cross because we realize that that's Jesus's altar of sacrifice in that moment. And it's a beautiful ceremony. You have an unveiling of the cross, and it's usually brought in by the deacon or the priest or one of the ministers. And it's unveiled a little bit at a time while there's some music sung to go along with it, to really focus us on this moment. And we're doing this in the Divine Mercy Hour at 3:00, and we've just read the Passion. So the significance of what we're venerating becomes alive to us in that moment. Then following the veneration of the cross, we have very solemn intercessions that are specific to Good Friday, where we pray for the church, the world. It's similar to what we pray for normally, but very specific text. It's not. This is something that will be universal no matter where you go on a Good Friday, as opposed to something that would be a little bit different depending what parish you were in. We also pray in those moments for the Jewish people or those who don't believe, and it's a really beautiful moment of prayer And then from there, we move into the reception of the Eucharist, beginning, if you're comparing it to Mass, it would be beginning around the same point where we would say the Our Father. But after the veneration of the cross, the Eucharist is brought from a side tabernacle and placed on the altar, and then we say the Our Father, and we move forward from there, and we receive communion. And then after communion, it's a simple closing prayer, and we exit. So there's a starkness to that. And the altar is bare. When the Eucharist is brought out, there are some cloths that are brought out to reverence the fact that it is the Eucharist. But for the most part, the altar area is very bare, to kind of just signify the solemnity of the day, this stark contrast between our normal Sunday. Even Holy Thursday is a little bit more, there's usually a little bit more flowers. The color is white because it's a Eucharistic celebration. And then definitely different than the great joy that is going to be, you're going to see lots of flowers on Holy Saturday. You're going to see lots of flowers. You're going to see lots of candles. And so there's this stark contrast for Good Friday, which really drives home the point of what happened that day.
Yeah. You mentioned about the candles and the fire for the Easter Vigil. Now, typically, if you go to like Mass on Saturday, it's you're going to get like the regular hour-long Mass, but the Easter Vigil tends to be considerably longer, right? And then there's the use of the fire and the candles to signify the new life and the new beginning. Talk to me a little bit about why the structure of the Easter Vigil Mass is so grand, for lack of a better term. And I know that that's also when we welcome in new people to the faith who are newly baptized and confirmed, right, and receiving all the sacraments at the same time.
Right. So when we're in that moment of Good Friday, we're in that starkness, that solemnness, and there's kind of a darkness. And so the Easter Vigil is usually celebrated after sundown, so that it's relatively dark, and the fire is lit to signify God's love and eternal desire for us, and the fact that He's present. We then light the Easter candle, which is the symbol of Jesus, and Jesus being the light of the world. And there's, again, beautiful prayers that go along with this. And then the deacon or the priest will move through the church and 3 times stop and sing Christ our light. And at each point in that being sung, the flame of the candle is shared. In our parish, the first time it's sung, the flame is only shared with the pastor, because I carry the candle and do the singing as the deacon. The second time, it's shared with the ministers, and the third time it's shared with the people. And so that light never dims from the Easter candle, but we see it going out into the world as a sign of Christ's love, Christ's life supposed to go out into the world. Then we incense the Easter candle, and then the deacon or priest or a cantor will sing the beautiful Exultet, which is a reminder of God's love. It's an ancient hymn about God's love for us and thanksgiving for all that He has given us, especially the fact that Christ, the light of the world, is conquering death. And it's a very beautiful traditional hymn. It comes from like the 2nd and 3rd century. It uses a lot of texts and thoughts from the early ecumenical councils, etc. And then after the light, the ceremonial light, we then move into the Old Testament readings. There are 7 options. Some parishes will use all 7. Some will limit it to 3 or 4. But through those readings and the corresponding responsorial song that goes with it and prayer by the priest, we get the general sense of salvation history. What brought God to the point of bringing Jesus into the world in that particular moment in time. And then once that is completed, we get to the Gloria, which is the first really joyful moment, and the collect, and then we also have the reading from the New Testament, from the epistle. And then after that, we move into the Alleluia being sung for the first time in 40 days, oftentimes with a lot of pomp and circumstance, some extra singing of the Alleluia. There's some parishes that use a traditional chant form before we get to the Alleluia itself, and the Alleluia itself could be extended because it had multiple verses. And then we move into the gospel, where we have the proclamation of he is risen, he is not here, and great joy. The church is now fully illuminated. And then after the homily, we have the receiving of those who are coming to receive their sacraments. We receive them to the church. We have the celebration of their baptism and confirmation. And then we move into them receiving the Eucharist at the appropriate time in the structure of the Mass. But it's a long service, especially depending how many people your parish is bringing in. But it is the pinnacle of the celebration of Christ's resurrection and the pinnacle moment for the church celebration for the whole year. And it's absolutely beautiful and gorgeous. And if we enter into the prayer, it will seem long, but at the same time, it'll seem like it was over in an instant, because it's just such a beautiful, moving ceremony.
I love that. You don't really realize how much time has passed because you're so focused on the grandeur. I think that's incredibly powerful. Now, I heard you mention the number 3 a couple times. You mentioned you sing Christ the Light 3 times, that Good Friday, the service is celebrated at 3 p.m., 333, and Triduum is 3. So talk to me about the significance of the 3 and why we celebrate all 3 days leading up to Easter, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Holy Saturday, versus just picking one of the days to celebrate. Why is there a specific reason for the timing and sequence for the events?
Well, 3, is a biblical number that represents God. And the Trinity, 3 in 1. And so to celebrate all 3, as I said earlier, helps us to enter in more fully into the mystery in its entirety. So we have the Triduum set up in these 3s to really help us to really enter into that mystery of his passion, death, and resurrection.
It's a great way to kind of hammer it home that it's 3. It's even like in comedy, they say, it's the rule of 3 is like once you hit it the 3rd time, it's like, oh, I get it. Now it's funny. But I think that's incredibly, I keep saying that it's powerful, but it's these 3 days that have led up to Easter are just, once you fully get it, it like makes it so much more impactful.
Right. And we go from, those 3 days, we go from supper to the cross, and then from the cross to the tomb, and then from the tomb to resurrection. So those 3 days each play an important role in getting us from one part of the story to the next.
Yes.
And then we have to internalize that in our own lives, because in our own lives we have those experiences as well, which when we realize that about our own lives, we understand that we might enter into the suffering of Good Friday, but there's always Easter joy. So
yes, there's always for lack of a better term, because of the next question I'm going to ask, but there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And speaking of light, there's a lot of symbolism that I've noticed, especially when it comes to the Easter Vigil, with light and darkness. And even in the opening of Genesis, there in the beginning there was darkness and then there was light. So talk to me about the liturgical symbols of light and darkness, how they play out in the Triduum, and particularly with the Paschal candle and the fire and all the other candles during the vigil.
Well, darkness has always been a sign of waiting. When you think about God in creation, there's a sense of waiting in the darkness until he establishes the luminaries in the sky and determines which one's going to be rule day and which one's going to rule night. And then after the fall, darkness has always been associated with sin and Satan. And this symbolism of sin and Satan is extremely powerful in our understanding of the Triduum, because in the starkness and solemnity of Good Friday, we have a sense of darkness, and it almost feels like Satan has won and sin has triumphed. But the fire and the Easter candle, and the fact that the Easter candle represents Christ himself, we see that light triumphs. And so we see that Christ, by entering in his death, when he rises, body, blood, soul, and divinity, he conquers death. So that light is a symbol of great joy and celebration, because the victory is with the light of the truth. And the truth is not just a thought or a feeling or some ideology, but the truth is a person, and that person is Jesus Christ.
I love that. And I want to talk a little bit more about the connection between Easter, specifically the Triduum, and the sacrament of reconciliation, especially when it comes to preparing. Now, I know it's strongly suggested, that we go to confession during the season of Lent. But let's say, today is Easter, and over the last 40 days, I haven't gotten a chance to go to confession. I know that doesn't mean I'm ineligible now to go to confession, but why is it so important to at least make the attempt to go to confession during the days leading up to Easter? And why is it important to the season of Easter? Because even after Easter, we still have the Easter season leading up to Pentecost. Talk to me about the importance of confession during this entire almost 100 days.
Well, the importance of confession kind of goes back to our discussion of dark and light. So if we see sin as being this darkness in our lives, we want to be in the light. We want to be in the joy. So the church offers us in the penitential season of Lent a strong calling to go to the sacrament. We see the parish is offering more confessions. We see penance services in the Lenten season to try to help us kind of put our house in order, so that we want to clean up for the guest that's coming for Easter, and the ultimate guest that's coming for Easter in our hearts is Jesus Christ. But if for whatever reason we missed that opportunity, as you said, it doesn't stop there. We can still put our house in order and welcome Jesus and experience the light of his love by being freed from our sin. I can kind of liken this to something that recently happened in my own family's life. My in-laws came to visit, and when people come to visit, you spend the last day or so like really trying to clean the house to make sure it's presentable for everybody. And when they came to visit, they changed their schedule, so they arrived a day early, and so we weren't ready. The house wasn't as clean as it usually is, and they were very accepting of that, and they still made their presence, and we still had a great visit and time together. But at some point, we also had to clean the house, either while they were there or after they left. And so the great thing about Jesus is he's not going anywhere. He's not leaving. So we have the opportunity to clean house there through reconciliation, to ask for forgiveness of our sins, to make restitution in some way for those sins by the act of penance. And Jesus is just waiting right there, as clean as we are, to fill us with his joy. So out with the sin, in with Jesus and his grace, and the joy that truly is the Easter season. So if you missed the opportunity during Lent to go to confession, Easter's still a great time to go. Many parishes still have confessions available because everybody, in the church and Jesus wants us to have that opportunity to be freed of the darkness of sin, so that we can enjoy the light of his coming.
I love that analogy about somebody coming over, or their plans changing, showing up unannounced, and you're like quick trying to stuff everything in the closet. But I think it's such a good analogy, because we don't want to be, if you think of like clutter in your house as like hoarding sin, you want to get that all out before your guest arrives, before Jesus comes to really fill you up. And I think that you're right. We didn't miss our chance. Like, there's still plenty of time to go, and confession is available throughout the year as well. It's makes a lot of sense to go now. Like you said, if we're going to be in the spirit of preparing anyway, we may as well really clean house and get it going. So I know there's a joke among the Catholic community that the church is always packed on Christmas and Easter, the CNE Catholics. But for those who may not always go, or who maybe are trying to get back into the habit of going back to Mass, why is it especially important to try to attend during the Easter Triduum, and especially on Easter?
Well, it's important because it's not just tradition. It's not just something nice that we do, and an opportunity to put on our nice clothing and get together with family, and then go to church and have a nice meal afterwards. But this is the core. The Easter Triduum is the core of our faith. It's everything we believe in is really in these 3 days. The essence of Christianity, not just Catholicism, but Christianity. But Catholics celebrate this in a very special way in these 3 days. This core of our belief that Jesus humbled himself to take on our humanity, and that in that humanity was willing to die for us and for our sins, so that he could rise again and bring us to everlasting life as well. So in his resurrection, his bodily resurrection, we have the hope and assurance that sin doesn't win, death doesn't win. Yes, we're all going to die someday, but we're also going to experience a bodily resurrection where our bodies and souls will be eternally in Jesus' presence and God's presence, and we will experience the joy of Easter in a much more profound, eternal way, greater than any joy that we can experience here on earth. So it's a great hope.
Yeah, I love that. You can never go wrong with hope. Hope is such a powerful motivator, and I just want to say thank you for talking to us about the Easter Triduum, because it makes Easter Easter is such an important holiday for us as Catholics anyway. It's an important commemoration, but knowing what goes into it and the build up into the celebration makes it that much more impactful and gives us that much more of a deeper understanding of why this is so important to us. So, Deacon Scott, thank you so much for enlightening us today.
Oh, no problem. Glad to be here.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Candid Catholic Convos, and happy Easter. If your kids have been anything like mine, this week has been challenging. It's like they automatically become more feral when they know they're about to have a couple days off from school. And today, they were probably more excited to rip open their chocolate this morning than they were to get dressed for church. Taking a set of sugared up siblings into the pew should absolutely put us on this path to sainthood. But even in years prior, Holy Week was always just something to get through, especially if whatever you gave up for Lent was especially hard. Now I know today officially marks the end of Holy Week, but for next year and for every year after that, how can we really lean into this special season, this pinnacle of our faith, and really truly experience it rather than just trudge through it? Deacon Scott Root, senior theology teacher for Trinity High School, joins me again for our Back to Basics series, and today we're exploring the holiest week of the year that we just celebrated, most specifically the 3 days leading up to today and why they are so vital to our faith. Hello, welcome to another episode of Candid Catholic Convos, and happy Easter! If your kids are anything like mine, this week has been especially challenging. It's like they automatically become more feral when they know that they have a few extra days off from school, and today they were definitely more excited to rip open their chocolate this morning than they were to get dressed for church. Taking a set of sugared up siblings into the pew should absolutely put us on the path to sainthood. But even in years prior, Holy Week was always just something to get through, especially if whatever you gave up for Lent felt extra hard. Now, I know today officially marks the end of Holy Week, but for next year and for every year after that, how can we really lean into this special season, this pinnacle of our faith, and truly experience it rather than just trudge through it? Deacon Scott Root, senior theology teacher at Trinity High School, joins me again today for our Back to Basics series. And today we're exploring the holiest week of the year that we just celebrated, most specifically the 3 days leading up to today, and why they are so vital to our faith. Hello, welcome to another episode of Candid Catholic Convos, and happy Easter! If your kids are anything like mine, they have been... Hello, and welcome to another episode of Candid Catholic Convos, and happy Easter! If your kids are anything like mine, this week has been especially challenging. It's like they automatically become more feral when they know that they're about to have a few extra days off from school. And today, they were definitely more excited to rip open their chocolate than they were to get dressed for church. I swear, taking a set of sugared up siblings into the pew should absolutely put us on the path to sainthood. But even in years prior, Holy Week was always just something to get through, especially if whatever you gave up for Lent was extra hard. Now, I know today is officially the end of Holy Week, but for next year and for every year after that, how can we really lean into this special season, this pinnacle of our faith, and truly experience it rather than just trudge through it? Deacon Scott Root, senior theology teacher at Trinity High School, joins me again for our Back to Basics series. And today we're exploring the holiest week of the year that we just celebrated, most specifically the 3 days leading up to today, and why they are so vital to our faith. Hello, welcome to another episode of Candid Catholic Convos, and happy Easter! If your kids are anything like mine, this week has been especially challenging. It's like they automatically become more feral when they know that they have an extra day. Hello, welcome to another episode of Candid Catholic Convos, and happy Easter. If your kids are anything like mine, this week has been especially challenging. It's like they automatically become more feral when they know they're about to have a few days off from school, and today they were definitely more excited to rip open their chocolate this morning than they were to get dressed for church. I swear, taking a set of sugared up siblings into the pews should absolutely put us on the path to sainthood. But even in years prior, Holy Week always just felt like something to get through, especially if whatever we gave up for Lent was extra hard. Now, I know today officially marks the end of Holy Week, but for next year and for every year after that, how can we really lean into this special season, this pinnacle of our faith, and truly experience it rather than just trudge through it? Deacon Scott Root, senior theology teacher at Trinity High School, joins me again today for our Back to Basics series. And today we're exploring the holiest week of Hello, welcome to another episode of Candid Catholic Convos, and happy Easter. If your kids are anything like mine, this past week has been especially challenging. It's like they automatically become more feral when they know they're about to have a few days off from school. And today, they were definitely more excited to rip open their chocolate than they were to get dressed for church. I swear, taking a set of sugared up siblings into the pews should absolutely put us on the path to sainthood. But even in years prior, Holy Week always just felt like something to get through, especially if whatever you gave up for Lent felt extra hard. Now, I know today officially marks the end of Holy Week, but for next year and for every year after that, how can we really lean into this special season, this pinnacle of our faith, and truly experience it rather than just trudge through it? Deacon Scott Root, senior theology teacher at Trinity High School, joins me again today for our Back to Basics series. And today we're exploring the holiest week of the year that we just celebrated, most specifically the 3 days leading up to today, and why they are so vital to our faith.